Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon again, as per your respective time zone. On behalf of entire Mastek Managed Services team, we would like you to welcome all to 22D Supply Chain Management Advisory webinar session. Now, this is important to keep the session fully synchronized with new features and functionalities as part of this quarter release, which Oracle provides. My name is Vashi Sharma, and I am consultant at Supply Chain team in the UK. Today, I am your host for this session. I am glad to introduce you to my colleague, Rushin Samani, who is part of our vast supply chain team at Mastek. Today, he will take us through all of the inventory and order management updates for 22D quarterly release. Today's session is planned for around about 45 to 60 minutes, and we will make sure that we will also leave some time to answer all of your questions that you may have. Now, before we move to our agenda, let's have a quick look at the important disclaimer. So, our approach to Oracle Update, we would like to convey you our approach towards the Oracle updates in a very simpler method. Our analysis of latest release. We will be taking you through our vital analysis for 22D updates done by our experts, which will help you incorporating new features and updates easily into the system. Also, we will sync you on any bugs, known issues if there are any, closing question and answers. It's good to have an interactive session, so please do ask questions through chat question panel and we will answer them at the end of the session. In case if we run out of time, we will make sure to respond you back by connecting you at a later stage to answer all of your questions. Now, this is to give you a glimpse of how we have created the structure of this session. The list of new features coming into 22D, detailing on features so you get brief understanding on what new features are all about. Next one is what are the business benefits and the important takeaway for you as a decision maker. These are 4 components where we have done in-depth analysis of features which we are going to present to you. First one is impact level analysis, which will demonstrate the impact on the end user. If it's a low impact, then regression tested can be avoided. If it's a high, then we need to opt for regression testing. Second one is where we are all aware that there are some features which are default auto-enabled by Oracle, and there are some which we need to opt for. Third one highlights the nature of the feature. There will be certain configurations which may be required, or some can be used without any changes. Last one, it's a quick win. This term we use simply to convey that what is ready to use by investing minimum amount of time and what require significant amount of time and effort to make use of this feature. Now I'll be handing over to Rushin now, but before that, I will like to know, with your help with a quick poll, which industry does your organization belong to? Now, this will help us create a more fruitful webinar content moving forward. So I'm just going to launch the poll now. If you can just please answer the questions, and then I'll be closing them very shortly. Perfect. Thank you very much, everyone. And I will just be handing over to Rushin now.
All right. Thank you so much, Rashi, for the information and explaining the structure to our attendees. So let's quickly jump on to our today's analysis. So Oracle has released a list of 26 updates combined for both inventory and order management for the latest coming update, that's 22D. After analyzing all these updates, we have identified and tagged them based on 4 criteria that Rashi mentioned before. Out of this 26 updates, it is safe to say that 14 of them seems to be a quick win, which means user can be able to start using them without significant efforts. But again, it can depend from business to business. Uh, for the rest of the updates, that is 12 of them, we do recommend users to do their own analysis and testing prior to start using them. Now, in the next slide, we'll start off with our detailed analysis. So let's start with the ones that are tagged with quick win, default with no configuration, which means we won't be needing any configuration to start using them. So first is use the supply request REST API to set the shipment priority for a transfer order. Oracle application comes with a predefined use values in WSH shipping priority lookup type for the shipping priorities. By default, this starts with high, medium, low, and some users may have extended list of by providing their own additional values. This feature now allows the user to reference them in the REST API payload to create or upload a transfer order, which means we have a tag available in our shipping priority on REST API. Supply chain orchestration sends the shipment priority that is specified in the REST API to inventory management to set the priority on a transfer order line, which can be then used by the warehouse managers to prioritize the shipping of the transfer order out of the vast pool that is available in his system. Next, we will see the sample payload. This is a sample payload that has been provided, and in the bottom you can see shipping priority code, which is now being provided into our sample payloads. Going next, uh, next update is use query by example to search for items on transfer orders. This is simple yet a very efficient feature where user can now query on a transfer order line for a specific item. Often at times we have seen businesses having 20, 30, or even more lines on a transfer order, and it becomes a task for a warehouse manager to find a particular item on a line and take a possible actions. This feature as shown in the screenshot over here provides a provision of querying one line out of the pool, which means an easy access and saving time and efforts in doing a transaction. Next, use REST services to confirm item deliveries in a physical document capture for a transfer order and RMA'S. Now, this update is specific for some countries where the physical documents are mandatory along with receipt transactions, say Brazil. This new REST service comes with get and patch operations onto the REST API, and sometimes this they are recorded in an external system which can now be brought back into an Oracle using the REST API. Next one is validate physical documents using a schedule process. So Oracle previously was providing a schedule process named import electronic physical data documents. They now have renamed it to import and validate electronic physical documents with an enhanced capability to support bulk validation of physical documents where that were either created manually or via interface. They've incorporated a new parameter which can decide to validate new, existing, or all of the physical documents. These features will help users to schedule the validation of new physical documents that are imported and are in pending validations. Next, configure additional financial orchestration qualifiers to model your financial flows. Oracle has added 3 new qualifiers, that is bill to country, bill to party, and sold to country, which can now be used in modeling the financial flows of drop shipment, shipment, and non-shippable sales processes. Next, upload serial descriptive flex fields using perform shipping transaction import FBDI. So file-based data import, that's an FBDI templates, are the quickest and easiest way to upload large volume of data. Now when uploading your shipping transactions using the perform shipping transaction import FBDI template, you can provide data of your serial number descriptive flex fields when you use serial number generation method, which is set to either at entry at inventory pick or inventory at sales order, transfer order, or a work order issue. This enhancement perform shipping transaction import FBDI template lets you capture the shipping serial number descriptive flex fields. And now you can also upload the additional information during processing ship confirmation transactions using FBDI. So those were the list of all the updates that we have marked as a quick win, default with no configuration. Now let's talk about list of the quick wins that which will require additional configurations. So first one is configure separate supplier accounts for profit center business units. You may have multiple profit center business units within your enterprise structure. Now you can configure separate supplier accounts for different profit center business units for your intercompany transactions. For a profit center business unit, choose a supplier from supplier number drop-down list over here. The benefit is supplier setup includes the payment and tax details and could be defaulted during the creation of intercompany invoices in Oracle Fusion Payables. Next, use order management extensions to create, read, update, or cancel order lines. Users will be able to add a new line that isn't related to an item already on an existing one. Also, apart from adding, users will now also be able to read, update, or cancel an order line that has a standard or a service item that is not referenced to an existing line. However, this feature can only be used if the pricing of the sales order is done in Oracle Order Management, and this feature cannot be used on an internal material transfer because pricing of an IMT transfer is usually frozen. Further, users can now configure Oracle Order Management user interface to indicate whether the order management line has been automatically added or manually added. And the screen over here shows a configuration of how you can change that UI to make sure that you can see the line that is added or done manually. Next. All right, now going to an opt-in features. So first one is configure preferred date format for the planning table data REST services. Oracle now provides the flexibility to select your own date format, which eases the burden of transforming any inbound data and use a consistent format. The user preferred date format will now be honored while using a planning table data REST services. This feature is optional at this point of time. However, this option is going to be eliminated and be mandatory from update 23B. Users with role of supply chain planners or material planners or replenish planners will be able to access this feature. Next, review sales order line number. Oracle has come up with an important change on a planner's UI. Now, they will be able to see sales order line number against all the order specific demand instead of the fulfillment line number. This enables an easy comparison with what is in the execution system and can save time and clicks of a planner when they are trying to compare sales order data versus the planning data. This feature benefits in saving time, clicks, and ease of comparing the system. Although this is an opt-in feature, it will no longer be optional starting 23B. View improved pick release logs. When running a pick wave for large number of orders, certain shipment lines can be excluded from selection for various reasons. For example, an order with many order lines on a shipment set can't be fully allocated during a pick release. When this happens, it can be time consuming to try to investigate every shipment line that wasn't released to your warehouse for picking. Now, with this latest provided pick release log, it provides you with a summary level details which can include the information like pick release demand selection criteria, pick release processing parameters, pick release sequence, the dynamic SQL user, and an overall count of shipment lines that were excluded from the selection with a reason for those lines that were excluded. Apart from being an opt-in feature, this requires a minor configuration where user needs to set a profile option for Aura WSH pick release ESS detail logging to Y. In case if it's set as no, system will start working as it's working currently. If you set it as yes, the new features will be enabled. Next, resolve inbound shipments and PO schedules for item on recall. Now, receive notifications to guide you to count and quarantine the inbound recall parts. When you publish a recall notice for recall products, the recall product may be in stock, issued to sub-inventory where the item isn't tracked, expensed, or inbound. When you locate and trace the recall product, tasks are assigned and notifications are sent based on the business rules. Previously, for the recall product that were part of an inbound shipment or a purchase order, notifications weren't sent when the products were received. With this feature, when you receive an inbound recall product, a notification is automatically sent so you can count and quarantine the recall product. A recall trace line is generated for all the locations that has received the product and a new count task is created. This enables the assigned person to count and move the recalled product to recall sub-inventory for a relevant disposal action. In the recall notice, the resolution of inbound shipment or open purchase order is changed to count task generated when the count task is created. The image here shows a recall line for an inbound shipment, that's the last one, as well as open POs having replaced recall products. These are the top three ones before it's shipped. Further, in the next slide, here, the first image shows a trace line based on the delivery of recall product. We can see the location, sub-inventory, as well as stock locator. In case if I zoom it, so we can see location, sub-inventory, and stock locators where the recall items are delivered after the count. And in the last image over here, shows a capability of a user to exempt any inbound PO trace line if the supplier confirms it's a defect-free item. This feature required to be opted as well as configured in the system. It provides a tighter control over recall process, enhancing a consumer safety. With the resolution status getting updated for the inbound trace line, you may get more visibility about how in-transit shipments and open PO schedules for recalled items get resolved, which saves time from administering the task of delivered recalled items. Next. Use a REST API to write off a deduction or settle an invalid invoice deduction claim with a chargeback. This feature covers an area of order management as well as Oracle receivables, which highlights an enhancement on an existing REST API, which can now be used to write off an invoice or a non-invoice deduction claim and to settle an invalid invoice deduction claim with a chargeback. It's an opt-in feature, and more information can be found in Oracle Cloud Readiness content for Oracle Financials. The benefit: resolve and settle customer claims with REST services for improved productivity and effectiveness in control of customer deduction. Next, define and adjust hierarchical quantity-based supply allocations. When a global order promising hierarchical allocation rule is defined in terms of specific item quantities rather than a percentage of demand, user can now adjust the allocation quantities using Oracle Backlog Management. Global order promising will use the adjusted allocation values for availability checking and scheduling of future orders. You can use this new capability to respond quickly to the changes in demand or the supply by adjusting quantity-based allocation values. User needs to have opt in two features in supply chain planning in order to use this feature. First, that's high volume order promising, and next is multi-level allocations in order promising. And the business benefit: the new capability can allow user to respond quickly to changes in demand or supply by adjusting quantity-based allocation values. Next, calculate acquisition cost for purchase transactions with an enhanced cost processing. The acquisition cost processor is enhanced with certain business improvements, which will bring more accuracy to accounting related to the purchase order transactions. These are the list of enhancements which they have mentioned, which I'll read out. First one is for the reconciliation improvements. Enhanced logic to reconcile the receiving inspection account across the cost accounting and receipt accounting. For expense destination purchase orders, the expense accounting entry now includes both the functional and purchase order document currencies. For purchase order related transactions, the processor uses transaction dates instead of a cost accounting process dates for more accurate currencies translation calculations. Invoice price variance adjustment events in cost accounting are posted to the general ledger period, that is same as period used by the accounts payables. Transaction events are processed individually to honor transaction dates for more accurate currency translation calculation. Absorb the entire invoice amount over the net delivered quantity rather than the order quantity on a purchase order. Enables granular tracking, easier reconciliation and processing of each individual purchase order price events, and eliminates commingling of events. Next type is to handle the multi-currency scenarios. Avoid unnecessary cost variances for currency translation when the currency of the purchase order amount is the same as the functional currency of one of the secondary cost book, but different than the functional currency of the primary cost book. Multiple purchase order price events with the same date can be processed in the same run of the acquisition cost processor. However, the processing of events is prioritized in this order, starting with PO receipt delivery, followed by invoice, then invoice corrections, landed cost charges, retro price events, PO returns, debit memo, and accrual clearing. Last, improve accounting accuracy by reducing the decimal dust resulting into repeated currency conversions. And for the last type, that's enhanced support for item purchase in the secondary unit of measure. Support the accurate acquisition cost calculation for catch weight scenarios for items tracked purchased in the secondary unit of measure. Next. So now we'll talk about the new features that we feel may require some high level testing. Again, it depends from business to business scenarios and analysis. So first one is specify when to set default values for tax determinants. Now, tax determinants help in calculating tax for one on the transactions. Users can now select when to default this tax determinants on the sales order, and few options available are: first, when any attributes on the sales order are modified, or when saving the sales order, or when submitting the sales order, or no default values on any sales order. This feature gives user a lot flexibility for the values that are used to calculate taxes. Use default values when you create the sales order or submit in order management work area, or only use values that you import. You can also improve your performance over here when you have big sales order and you don't want to calculate tax on them. It can save some time. Next, extract and upload data from external systems with improved performance. Now, a large volume of data resident in your supply chain execution system may be required in Oracle Fusion supply chain planning for effective planning. It's imperative that this data is loaded in the most efficient manner so that the data is available for running the planning processes with the minimum delay. With this update, the process to load data for external systems using load interface file for import schedule process has been streamlined with an optional setup to sequentially load the data into the interface table based on the predefined logical grouping of entities are expected to have large volume of data. If you have a large number of data, such as shipment history, this feature enables a more optimized usage of computing resources during the load process and can lead to an improved performances. If you are extracting the data from an Oracle e-business suite, the extraction process has an additional parameters to split the extracted data into multiple files when the data file exceeds a certain size for better overall performance. Further, you need to select an opt-in feature, high volume order promising, to utilize the mentioned feature. Order promising is a critical business process that must scale with demand to continue to operate even if the hardware failure occurs. Recent changes to Oracle Fusion Global Order Promising provides a scale-out architecture for availability checking and scheduling requests across the horizontal grid, enhancing capacity and resilience. The new architecture also reduces an operational overhead, making supply chain and reference data updates immediately available and eliminating the need to refresh and restart an order promising server. In the next slide, here, the image here shows how to set up a standard lookup code in Manage Standard Lookups for enabling the sequential processing of your Oracle Supply Chain Planning Cloud FBDI for large files with a predefined logical grouping for improved performance. So over here, this is the setup which we are talking. For this lookup, if your value is marked as 135, it means that you can use the sequential loading of the data. In case if you are input providing any other value other than 145, then the schedule process loads the data with an existing parallel logic. Next, include future dated receipts in real time available to promise calculations. Now, update 22C introduced a new order promising mode that leverages real-time updates to on-hand and receipt balances to schedule orders rather than using the collected data. This real-time promising mode now considers future dated receipts in addition to the receipts of the current date. If you are using this mode, you can offer your customer an accurate future availability dates for items that don't have current stock rather than putting them on a back order. The image here shows a configuration snapshot utilizing this feature. So in an item setup, when you check ATP based as source based promising, you will be able to utilize this feature. Where Benefits, well, the source-based promising flavor of an Oracle Global Order Promising now supports future dated supplies such as purchase order, transfer order, and work orders. In addition to the supplies that were previously considered. This drives order promising in a distribution-based businesses more accurately in a real-time business without needing to collect those supply documents. Next, include resources needed to produce assemble to order options and capable to promise calculations. Now, update 22A introduced capable to promise calculation based on a bill of resources. This calculation included resources for only mandatory components of assemble to order items. With this update, the availability checking and scheduling for the configured items will also consider the resources specified to the order line that are needed to produce on the configure to order options. Additionally, Oracle Global Order Promising will consider resource availability specific to the option items selected on the order, which represents configured item of the ATO model. Critical resources used in option-dependent operations will now be included in the bills of resources. The bills of resources for option-dependent resources will also display an additional feature such as component usage, operation sequence number, and resource quantity. So here we have resource quantity, usage quantity, and operational sequence numbers. Benefits: change reduces an overly optimistic scheduling of an ATO item that requires resources with a restricted availability. Next, respect supply allocation rules in the quick availability check REST services. The quick availability check operations in global order promising REST service provides a current supply information for e-commerce and order capture applications. Instead of calculating an availability date for a requested quantity, it provides a quantity that's available to order today or by some future date. A front-end application can use this information to filter out of stock items, provide a low stock notification, or feature items with a high stock. With this update, Oracle Global Order Promising applies allocation rules to distribute the available quantities based on the allocation attribute values provided with the request. Also, now Oracle Global Order Promising will return quick availability result for any given requested dates, regardless of whether it's a working day or a holiday. This change lets you offer higher level of availability to some customers than others based on the region, channel, loyalty status, or other attributes. It also helps ensure that once an order is placed, an item that's on allocation will still be available to that customer. Next, use approval management for movement request. Use an approval-based workflow to route your requisition type of movement request to the appropriate approval authorities prior to executing the movement request. A workflow task generally passes from one user to another, usually for approvals. The user gets the notification. For example, when the task is assigned to them for an approval, after all the approval act on the task, say by approving it, the task is complete and whatever approved state approval effect has taken will be shown in the system. Image on the left shows a visual of how the movement request will follow. Here, the movement request screen showing a line on pending approval status, and down here shows a notification screen of an approver where he can approve or reject a notification. The movement request approval can be configured by using manage movement request approval task, and it can benefit organizations which requires to have an approval on any such requisition movements to be approved for to process or for audit purposes. Next, send unreserved demand to an external WMS or 3PL systems. In today's fast-paced, just-in-time logistic environment, you need to fulfill your customer's order as soon as possible. This means you may want to send orders to your external third-party logistics provider or warehouse management system before sufficient on-hand quantities are available. This way, you can quickly and efficiently cross-dock materials using your 3PL and WMS capabilities to fulfill the outstanding order faster. Now, when integrating with an external 3PL or WMS, you can send unreserved shipment lines to your external execution system. This feature provides you with a great flexibility in selecting which shipment lines you send to your external execution system and allows you to take advantage of external execution systems cross-docking capabilities. The screenshot here shows a configuration that is required to use this feature. In manage shipping parameters, user needs to set values of reservation behavior for integration to an external system as all lines without creating the reservations. This configuration will send all the lines to the external use system through generate shipment request process, and any reservations created prior to the request will be retained. Next, use transaction date as the expenditure item date for purchase order receipts. Now, when using a project driven supply chain, the expenditure item date plays an important role in your project accounting flow. For example, expenditure item date is used as the date for budgetary control and cost accruals. Because it plays such an important role in all the project-based orders, you need the expenditure item date to be accurately reflecting on your transactions. Prior to this update, purchase order receipt date used to be captured on the purchase order as the expenditure item date. And if some of your items have a long lead times, this can lead to an inaccurate accounting picture once the goods are received. Now, purchase order receipt use the user enter transaction date as an expenditure item date for the project-based supply. With this enhancement, the expenditure item date on the purchase order is no longer considered by Oracle receiving during the put away or any other receiving transactions. Instead, the transaction date is passed to the Oracle cost accounting and Oracle receipt accounting as the expenditure item date for any project-driven supply chain transactions. Return and correction transaction in receiving will also consider the transaction date as their expenditure item dates. Next, expense scrap and use accumulated WIP balances with the periodic average cost method. You can use these options to expense scrap for manufacturing transactions and use the accumulated work in process balance for provisional completions with the periodic average cost method. These existing options are now available for periodic cost method too. The image here shows a configuration that is required for the feature, where in the cost profile you need to select provisional completion as value using accumulated work in process balance and operations scrapping accounting as an expense. The feature will benefit users while calculating more accurate work in process balances for the work orders that span across the periods. The resource absorption report will help user to reconcile the resource cost absorbed across the work order for the period. This can be compared to an actual expenses incurred that are absorbing the entire expenses. Next, use enhanced period inventory valuation and gross margin reporting. Reconcile inventory valuation and report on gross margin more quickly using the enhanced report processes for the data sources. This feature opt-in expires in update 23B. The previous reporting architecture for inventory valuation and gross margin is replaced with the new set of improved reporting tools. The improvement includes updated processing logic for accounting, intra-valuation transfers, match cost dates and accounting dates, and handle the negative inventory. The list here features some of the enhanced capabilities that will be released in 22D. First, enhance analytical infolets for assets and consign inventory valuation. Redesign inventory valuation page for streamlined reporting and reconciliation. Quickly review items by leveraging filters and exporting data to spreadsheets. Intuitively understand mismatch between costed values and accounted values in costing subledger at all levels. All inventory valuation and gross margin pages, reports, and OTBI BICC extracts now work on the performance cost report processing data model. The cost report processor can be run as a part of the create cost accounting distribution process. Oracle has now come up with a note saying this feature opt-in is scheduled to expire in 23B, after which this feature becomes standard for all the customers. All the existing reporting objects and views for items, inventory valuation, and gross margin will be removed. You should transition to this feature by update 23A to avoid any change management issues. So these are the list of reporting objects that will be deprecated, followed by the list of the reporting objects that will be available with the respective updates. In the next slide, Now, these are the list of tables and views that are going to be deprecated starting 23B. We strongly advise users to check their dependency on any of the above listed tables or views on their RISE objects, process designs, and proactively plan the changes according to cater the coming updates and deprecations. Also, user may visit this link for more updates and more details. Next. So coming to this last update of this session, use transactional for description-based purchase orders in global procurement. Now, process intercompany payables and receivable transactions using the transactional and quantity-based description for description-based intercompany purchase orders. You can choose to use this option instead of setting up as a service item in financial orchestration system options. You have an option to configure the global procurement business process flow for description lines either with a service item or without a service item setup using the checkbox, consider service items for descriptive global purchase order processing. If you deselect this consider service item for descriptive global purchase order processing checkbox, supply chain orchestration calculates the transfer price using the transactional and the transactional is passed to the payables and receivables for intercompany generation. So that will be that was the last update, and I will be jumping into closing Q&A session.
Thank you, Rushian, for the wonderful insights. Now, before we move on to the question and answers, with the help of quick poll, we would like you to note down your area of interest in order to organize future webinars with more value-based content. So here's the poll, and let us know your area of interest. And I'm just about to launch this. If you can just please answer the questions. Perfect. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to close the poll now. And our next poll is please rate your overall experience of today's session. I'm just going to launch this now. Perfect. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to close this poll as well. And our final poll is, have you attended any previous advisory sessions? And I'm just going to launch this now. Perfect. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm just going to close the poll. And let's quickly move towards our question and answers part now. So we have Utsa Thakkar. You will receive an email in the next couple of days' time where the presentation and the session recording would be available to you at a single click. So any questions you have, Utsa Thakkar will be able to assist you with all of your doubts and your queries. Now, before you leave us, we will like to say thank you very much and have a wonderful evening or day.